I've got another email here from one of our low IQ listeners, one of the college graduates that does amazing research here. We've been talking about historical tidbits on the program over the last several weeks, here and there, from the St. Louis program books that Scott Teals put out and some of my files and some of the other various research material that we have about attendance for wrestling back in the old days. We've been talking about the early 50s. 50, 51, 52, etc., and given some of the St. Louis and Chicago statistics. Well, Joseph from Virginia Beach took us up on our dare, because remember we were talking about not only the attendances, but also the pay for professional athletes back in those days. We determined that there were several wrestlers that were making as much, if not more money than the highest paid players in professional baseball, and the NFL was even farther behind with, you still had guys in the late 50s making less than 10 grand a year, just rank and file players. So anyway, this brings up an interesting juxtaposition of how the popularity of both of these sports, baseball and wrestling, have aged over the years. And, you get a lot of people, Brian, say, well, yeah, sure. A lot of people went to wrestling back in those days because there was nothing to do. You've heard that one, right? Absolutely nothing to do.
That's my favorite one. Of course, people went more often back then. There were less things to do.
Okay, well, one of those things to do was go to a baseball game, and the other one was go to wrestling, among the things that were there to do. So, Joseph says, Mr. Cornette, I chose to compare 1951 wrestling to 2019 wrestling, as well as to another popular sport, Major League Baseball. I've chosen the 16 teams that existed in 1951 and their modern equivalents. In 1951, the 16 Major League Baseball teams over a 154-game season back then, apparently, which is more than they play these days, right?
No, they play 162 now.
Okay, well, okay, but wait a minute. Well, then hold on, let me read this. In 1951, the 16 MLB teams over 154-game season sold 16.1 million tickets, with the top seller being the Yankees with 1.95 million, and the lowest being the St. Louis Browns, now Orioles, selling 294,000. Now, he says in 2019, over an 84-game season, these same teams sold 38.2 million tickets. So where is the difference there? You're messing up his research.
Well, Jim, one of the things, and I've talked to other people about this, that's a little different today about baseball that you have to take into the equation that you didn't really have back then. I've been to baseball games, like when the Mets were bad. I used to love to go to either Shea Stadium or Citi Field and just kind of have an empty stadium to hang out. And there'd be no one there. You could count how many people were there. Sometimes there was no more than 8,000 people in Shea Stadium. You'd see the newspaper the next day, 23,000 people. Same thing with, Citi Field. There are days where there's not many people there. You'd read in the newspaper, 23,000 people. I'm just using that number. It's not always the same. And you say to yourself, well, there aren't that many people there. They sold that many tickets, but they don't get that many people through the turnstiles because there are so many businesses and companies that have season tickets, that have groups of tickets that if no one's there to take them, if they don't give them to someone, if no one gets them as a gift, if no assistant takes them and takes someone to the game, no one goes. Those seats are empty, but the ticket is sold. So that is something you have to think about when you compare ticket sales then versus now. There are a lot of tickets sold now, although no one's actually sitting in the seats.
Well, nevertheless, is it 22 million tickets?
No, I don't think it's that many tickets.
Okay, what he's saying here, and we are free to engage other people in their research if they want to question this, but Joseph is saying in 1961, these 16 teams sold 16 million tickets, and the same teams in 2019 sold 38.2 million tickets. Now, he further says, as stated by us, quoting the Wall Street Journal article from 1951 that we were talking about, 12 million wrestling tickets were sold in 1951. According to Wikipedia, there were 27 territories in existence at that time, and give or take. And then there were also
what's a territory?
Single cities, and what was a territory there, etc. But the point is, there were a lot of wrestling events. And obviously, from what the research material we've got, in 1951, you could take St. Louis, Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York and get close to 1 million. That leaves every place else in the entire United States. But anyway.
And that's a down New York.
And that was when New York was just starting back up after being dark. But anyway, so basically, in 1951, 8% of the U.S. population of 154 million people then bought a ticket to a wrestling event. Now, 8% of the population buying tickets to a wrestling event in 2019 would mean 26 million tickets would have been sold. If wrestling held up its ratio of the population there, and if wrestling held its ratio to baseball, in other words, the percent of tickets that wrestling sold compared to baseball, wrestling would have sold 28 million tickets. And he says, I can't add up the ticket sales of every company in the United States in 2019, but there is no possibility of it being enough to get to 26 or 28 million. To me, this indicates wrestling has lost ground in popularity as sport or entertainment. What say you? I say yes. That's the point. There were other things to do when they had bowling. There were other things to do when it's not like suddenly electricity just came around in 1985 and all of a sudden, now there's plenty of things. There's always been shit to do, just different shit. But things that were around, especially sports that were around in those days, with the exception of roller derby, are all more popular than they were then and more lucrative than they were then. Only wrestling is not.
Live experiences are more lucrative now than ever before. Various forms of entertainment, anything that's about getting out of the house, going there, being involved. It's more lucrative now than ever before. Yet the WWE runs less shows than ever before. They can't get people to attend these shows to the point where they're profitable, or that it's worth it, or profitable enough that it's worth it, I should say.
Well, and I mean, obviously the days of being able to run the same market weekly or bi-weekly or even monthly as in the old days are gone, because nobody is that emotionally invested in wrestling anymore, for one thing. And secondly, that would get, at today's prices, that would get expensive. In the, when you do the inflation calculator math of ticket prices for even the hot territories in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that ran weekly or bi-weekly, it doesn't begin to come up to the prices of tickets today, because they're only in that market one time. They want to get people for as much money as possible, and you ain't going to see them again for a year or however long. The promoters in those days were going for repeat business. But the promoters in those days still made a whole lot more money going out on the road and selling tickets than anybody is today to a live event for wrestling. And like you just said, it's not like nobody goes to see anything anywhere anymore. So I don't know. I think they're just trying to make the explanation that they've got in their head, they're working backwards and trying to make it fit from there. No, wrestling's just a lot less popular overall than it ever has been, and especially less popular than it was in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even the 90s. You know why, Brian?
Why is that?
Because none of these people, nobody in wrestling and nobody watching wrestling, is getting a good night's sleep.
I can believe it.
One of our new friends in our family of sponsors that people have been talking about specifically, they've been talking about the very first spot that we did for him the other day on the program.
Pacifically?
Pacifically and Atlantically as well. They are talking about the spot that we did the other day on the program for our fine friends at Beam. And the Beam Dream Powder, everybody started talking about that instantly. That's the only thing that was on the tips of their lips as soon as we told them about this. Because, folks, when it comes to recovery, performance, immunity, and feeling less stressed, sleep is everything. And now, the answer has been found to better sleep in a delicious, healthy cup of cocoa. Cocoa, I say. It's the Dream CBD powder from Beam, the dream from Beam. And it's changed the way that people sleep. With Dream Powder, you're getting more than just quality shut-eye. You're providing your body with sleepy vitamins and minerals like magnesium, reishi, that theanine stuff, and nano CBD. Do not laugh at the way I pronounce theanine.
Did you say sleepy vitamins?
Sleepy vitamins. That's what they're called. Sleepy vitamins. It makes you sleep. And theanine. Dream is essentially a guilt-free, sleep-inducing, warm cup of organic cacao and organic cinnamon. Cacao is a little different than cocoa because you have the A up front and the emphasis on the cacao. And organic cinnamon, there's no calories or added sugar, and there is proof in the powder. As we've mentioned, statistics show after taking Dream Powder, 99% of people feel an improvement in the quality of their sleep. 97% of the people felt more energized the next day, and 2% of the people were talked off a bridge. If you want better sleep no, I'm just kidding about the other percent. I won't do that anymore, I promise.
I'm kidding about the other percent.
That last percent was just added for entertainment value only. If you want better sleep and better days delivered every month, they will deliver these days to your door when you subscribe to Dream. For awesome perks like free delivery and 30 papa.
Cacao and papa.
I was what I'm trying. Cacao. Stop it. Awesome perks like free delivery and 35% off your first month of Dream. Plus, you can pause or cancel this at any time. You subscribe today, you'll save 35%. By doing this, do this now. Do not wait. Go to Beam, BEAMTLC.com/JCE. That's Beam, BEAM. Stop it. BEAMTLC.com/JCE. And if you use that code JCE at checkout, you get the free delivery, you get the 35% off. You'll have my undying gratitude. We want these people to spread this powder across America because everybody will sleep better. You'll wish you'd never wake up again when you sleep on this shit, folks. Sweet dreams, everybody.
You know, Jim, it's too bad he's not around. The perfect spokesman for Beam would be Mr. Scott from Star Trek.
Beam me up, Scotty.
That's right.
Well, you don't want to be up on Beam. You want to be down on Beam. You want to be asleep on Beam.
No. Beam me back up to the spaceship so I can take a nap.
We'll work on that one.